Okay, so welcome to today's workshop on CVs for the UK job market. Today we'll cover the nuts and bolts of what you should include in your CV. We'll also touch on covering letters, which are extremely important as well. And then at the end of the workshop, I will share some online CV resources and just give you some brief information about how you can book a careers appointment as well. Okay, so before we start getting into the nuts and bolts of the CV, I'd like to do a little quiz. So just bear with me 1 second. Okay, is that visible? So if you can scan the QR code or go on to kahoot.it and just put the game PIN number in, and when we've got all the players signed up, we'll start the quiz. It's just a little icebreaker. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. For those of you who are just joining us, if you can either scan the QR code on the phone, or if you go to www.kahoot.it and just put in the game PIN, and that will take you straight to the game.
Should say it works best if you have a second device and you can do it on that second device.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Okay. Right, we've got one person so far, right? Welcome, Patty. Welcome, Lass. For those of you who just joined, if you can either scan the QR code there and access and then put in the game PIN number, or you can join through the web link there. Okay, I'm going to wait for lots more participants before I start the game. Okay, any more? Okay. I'll give it another minute or so for a few more of you to join. If you don't want to put your real name in, you could just make up a name. Okay. So I've got 6 people. Let's have a few more. 7. 1 more, and then we're going to make a start. What do you think, Connor?
That's a good plan.
Okay, we've got somebody else joining us. So again, for those who've just joined, if you could just go to the Kahoot website, put the game PIN in, and then we'll play this icebreaker. It only takes a few minutes to do this. A couple of more people have joined. 1 more minute, and then I'm going to make a start. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start the game. So if you just answer each of the questions, I'll put the volume on. Okay. Okay, what does ATS stand for? Is it applicant tracking system? Is it application testing software? Automatic transcribing source? Okay, so right answer was applicant tracking system. So well done to all of those who got it right. Next question. Oh, we've got scoreboard first. So well done, Oscar. How long does the average recruiter spend on your CV? Okay, it's actually less than 10 seconds. A majority of you have said 30 seconds. So well done to the person who got that right. Okay, so that takes Sabir up the scoreboard. Next question. What is the ideal page length for a CV? Well done, most of you got that right. It is 2 pages. Well done, Neha. Okay, so this is true and false. If you're married, you should state your marital status and maiden name, if applicable, in your CV. Should you state your marital status? False. So well done. Well done, Neha. Okay, another true and false. Is it important to include a list of referees in your CV? So say you're in your final year graduating, should you put a list of referees in your CV? Half and half. Well, the answer is no, you don't need to put the list of referees. Only give references, list of referees if it's requested. Otherwise, it's not required in your CV. Okay, next question. Oh, sorry, scoreboard first. Well done again, Neha. Right, another true and false. Your CV should only include a photo of yourself if you're applying for a role as an actor or a model in the UK. Most of you thought false. It's actually true. You do not need to put a photograph of yourself on your CV. Only if you've got a LinkedIn profile, you would put it in there, but not on your CV. So let's see who's winning on the scoreboard. It's Neha again. Well done, Neha. Okay, another true and false. Employers expect you to include information about your religion to ensure no potential conflict with job requirements. Do they want to know about your religion? Absolutely. Well done, everybody. False. Well done, Neha. Okay, second but last question. If you're applying for a job in the UK, which one of these items should always be included in your CV? Which one of these items? Well done. Most of you got this right. It is core competencies. We don't need your specific street address. We don't need your date of birth. So well done. Okay. Well done, Neha. Final question. Which of the following is an ideal format for a modern CV? Which of the following is an ideal format for a modern CV? Yes, clean and simple. So well done. Thank you for taking part in that. I'll just complete the scoreboard. Well done, Sabir. Well done, Las. And the spotlight is on Neha. Thank you so much for taking part. So just a little icebreaker. I hope you found it useful. But let's go back to the presentation. So just bear with me 1 second while I switch off the noise. Okay, so if I just go back to the presentation now. So let's sort of have a look at the nuts and bolts of the CV there, if you'll like my image there. So essentially, the CV is the document that actually lists all the criteria and evidence of your suitability for whatever role you apply for. It's got to be tailored and it's got to be detailed. And it's got to have those skills which are required in the job description. So if we have, I mean, let's be honest here. you know, it is extremely boring writing a CV. I mean, how do you talk about, you know, your professional experience, your part-time jobs, and try and put it all together in a 2-page CV? But it's really important that you do that, because it is essentially your golden ticket for getting that interview and hopefully securing that position that you really want. So it's an important document, really. And you should really work on it from day one. And, you know, it's a work in progress. Your CV, you know, it's going to change from year on, as you build your experience, as you get involved in more voluntary work, or you do more part-time work, or you get involved in societies, or you develop your interests. So all of that information needs to be captured in your CV. So when we look at the essential components of a CV, you've got, you know, your contact details, as we mentioned before. In the icebreaker, you don't need your date of birth, you don't need to write your nationality. Then you have a profile. Now I'm going to show you some examples of just some general templates of a CV, but the profile is really 2 or 3 lines, maximum 4, I would say. And it's got to be a concise statement about your key attributes. You know, it's got to sort of mention your current status, whether you're doing an undergraduate course, mention that course, highlight the key skills, and mention the sector that you wish to target as well. And you've got to do that for each role. So that profile has to change. Then when it comes to your education, always list the most recent first. So although you haven't completed your degree, or you might be about to complete it, make sure that the degree title is there in bold, and write some information on relevant modules. Now, you don't need to list every single module, but certainly write the ones which are most relevant to the positions you are applying for. If you've got A's, you've done exceptionally well in any particular area, you know, highlight that, put those grades in bold, but don't put in any grades for subjects that you haven't done so well in. Okay, when it comes to work experience, you know, the way to sort of pitch this in your CV is have a separate title that says relevant work experience. If that work, say you're doing engineering, you could write relevant work experience in engineering. If you're working in healthcare, relevant experience in healthcare, and so forth. So you're actually looking at your experience in terms of maybe, you know, your internships or any kind of professional experience, and you're categorizing that according to the subject area. And then anything else which is not affiliated to what you're interested in can come under the heading as other employment or sort of other work experience. Okay, so achievements, definitely include that in your CV. Employers like to know what you do outside of your studies, you know, what your achievements are in terms of, it could be to do with any of your extracurricular activities, your sports, or if even in the work arena, if you've got an award for, you know, being the best employee, mention things like that. Really brag about yourself in the CV. And then think about the skills. Now, I would say have the skills on the first page, even after your profile, have them straight there, because those skills, whether it's technical skills, whether it's soft skills, again, they have to be tailored according to the position that you're applying for. But it's really important to list them. When you're writing interest, don't just write the same old boring information like, you know, socializing or going to the cinema. Write something again, sort of affiliated to the job. So if you're thinking about working in finance and you keep up to date with the sector online, mention that. Employers will definitely read the interest section. I've spoken to quite a few employers and they've mentioned that they like to see what a potential candidate does outside of their work and study. So do think about including that. Don't put paragraphs, you know, just keep it very concise and to the point. References, as we mentioned earlier on, you do not need to include references, simply say available on request. Okay, so know yourself to sell yourself, you know, really brag about yourself. If you are on the borderline of a 2-1 and a first, sort of highlight the fact that, you know, you might be predicted a first because, you know, you've still got the chance of achieving a first. So mention that, put it in bold. If you've done exceptionally well in any of your achievements as well, highlight that, but again, put it in bold. So I think it's, you know, your CV has to demonstrate your passion for the company and for the job. And I think it's important to highlight any past achievements that are particularly relevant to the role. So what is it that you're telling and selling? You know, what are you sort of bragging about? Well, it's got to be your strengths, and those strengths can be affiliated to your studies. So it could be your creative ability. It could be, you know, if you're working, if you're currently doing a technology-based degree, then talk about, you know, what kind of tools you use, you know, what software skills you've got, what hardware skills you've got. If you're, you know, thinking of, if you're working in creative writing or journalism, if you've got any editing skills, mention that. Mention the tools that you use as well. If you're using Photoshop,
Hey, Rita, you've muted.
oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, I'm not quite sure what happened there because I didn't press the mute button. So did you hear what I said about strengths? Did you catch that?
If you take it from there.
Shall we start from strengths again? So yeah, I was saying a minute ago, if you you know, talk about your strengths, but those strengths must really be affiliated to the job that you're applying for. So if it's a creative ability, if it's digital, if it's editing, if it's social media or anything to do with technology, highlight them. It's really important. Achievements, you know, think about any awards, if you've got won any awards at university or you've got any certificates through extracurricular courses, make sure again it's highlighted in your CV. Skills, now the skills section, I've talked a little bit about it in strengths, but the skills section has to include both academic skills but also your soft skills. And soft skills are really important. So if you look at the top 5 skills employers are looking for, it's always problem solving, creativity, emotional intelligence. All of these things are really important, but don't just write a list of soft skills. Where possible, show some evidence, or if you're writing it in a job description, mention that you've acquired, you know, team building skills through doing lots of project work and so forth. In terms of experience, you know, try and build your experience whilst you're at university. I don't know if you heard me in the previous slide, but try and, you know, build on that experience. If you're doing a Brunel Plus Awards, mention that. Get involved in societies, try and do some part-time work, try and do some internships, student ambassador. There's so many things that you can do at university. So that will build content into your CV. And I think students a lot of times say to me, but I don't want to put in the fact that I've been working in McDonald's or I've been working in some other restaurant part-time because it's not related to what I want to do. But actually, it's really important to put that kind of information in, because no employer is expecting you to you know everything about the graduate position or whatever position it is you're applying for. But what they do want to hear is they do want to see somebody who's extremely proactive and who you know is sort of looking for new opportunities and putting themselves out there, whether it's voluntary work or anything else. So do mention all of that experience. And I think by doing that, it gives the employer a good insight into your personality, you know, how well you're going to fit into their organization. So really important to do that. I'm just going to show you this infographic now. So I'm going to move this bar out the way because I know it's covering the slides, but just some really interesting facts. So first application received 200 seconds after a job is posted. The average time spent looking at a CV is 5 to 7 seconds. So you spent so much time writing your CV, but only 5 to 7 seconds. But if you've got the key information on the first page, you know, the recruiter or whoever's screening your CV will look at your CV in more detail. Okay, although this infographic mentions only a 17% chance that your cover letter will be read, I think where possible, always include a cover letter because it kind of gives some context to your CV. And there's we've got lots of examples on the Prospects website of how you can actually construct your cover letter if you're struggling with that. Really important, one spelling or grammar mistake and your CV is going to be thrown out. I actually once had a student who applied to Guinness and spelled Guinness wrong. So really important to be mindful and to do a thorough spell check because not everything is picked up by Microsoft Word. So just be mindful of that. Now, whatever social media platform you use, make sure your privacy settings are put on. I'm sure a lot of you are on Instagram or maybe some other social media tool, but just be mindful that employers, if they're interested in your profile, they will search for what you're posting online. So 68% of employers will find you on Facebook. I mean, this is a slightly old infographic, so I guess it's the same for Instagram or whatever other tools you use. 76% of CVs are ignored if your email address is unprofessional. Really important to have a separate email address, just your first name, your second name. Keep it very simple for job applications. On average, 250 CVs are received for each job position. Now, this is actually a lot higher now. I would say it's in the order of probably 700. So be mindful of that. How is your CV going to stand out? Also, if you've got your CV, and you're happy with it and it evidences and details all your educational professional experience, really important to transpose all that information onto LinkedIn. Now, the statistics on this infographic say that 86% of businesses use social media networks for recruitment, and that was in 2011. So we're 11 years on. It's actually in the order of 90%. So please, can I ask you all, if you haven't done so already, start getting used to LinkedIn. Transpose all the information from your CV onto LinkedIn and start sort of exploring what the tool offers, because a lot of employers are actually finding candidates through LinkedIn. Okay, 88% job rejection rate if you have a photo of yourself on your CV. Now, it is really important, unless you are applying in the performing arts sector, do not put your photograph on your CV. It's not required. Okay, so very quickly, 1 in 3 employers rejected candidates based on something they found out about them online. So really important to make sure your privacy settings are set up on any social media tool that you use. Okay, so moving on from that. So what makes your CV stand out? Well, we've talked a lot about this already, but if you have got any links to any of your work, so you're working in film and TV, or you've got any links to the projects you're doing, make sure that they are in your CV. Really important to do that. And also put your LinkedIn, short link for your LinkedIn profile on your CV as well. Include lots of evidence, and that evidence, when I talk about evidence, it's about your professional experience, it's about your part-time work, because that's all going to demonstrate your soft skills. So as much information as possible, and that will also highlight your achievements as well. And we've talked about a professional email address as well. So let's move on to the next slide. So let's think about the styles of CV. Well, essentially there's 2 styles. There's a chronological CV, and this is the most popular, and then you've got the skills-based CV as well. But then you've got like a hybrid style CV where you've got your recent education, and then you've got relevant employment straight after that as well. So let's just go through this quite quickly. So there's just a very simple example of a chronological CV. So you can see that they've got their, that you don't put the words curriculum vitae on the top, you need to put your name there. And this is just an example. So no template is perfect. It just gives you an idea of how to construct your own CV, because every CV is really unique, and your experience and your headings are going to reflect your experience. So just bear that in mind. You should also put your LinkedIn profile there. I know the sample doesn't. Then they've got a brief statement about what they're doing, a final year maths undergraduate with some just a little bit of detail about what they're currently doing. But then when it comes to the education section, I would say make the degree title bold, not the university name. And I know this example from Prospects has it the other way around, but I think it's important to have that degree title in bold. Put some relevant modules, and then put your previous experience in as well. If you're if your secondary school was in another country, then write the equivalent exam. So if those exams that you did, whether it's an international baccalaureate or any other exam, find out what the equivalent A levels are and write that down, because you're targeting the UK market. So it's important to highlight it in that way. You know, the same applies if you've done a previous degree and you've got a GPA. Look at what the equivalent prediction is, the equivalent classification is for a UK-based degree. Okay, and then you talk about the experience. I would say always write that experience in the third person format rather than saying, I did this, I did that. I think it just sounds a lot more professional. So again, you can see they've got their education, employment, volunteering, activities and achievements, sports, and that sort of captures the main body of the information. Okay, so now let's have a look at a skills-based CV. And again, whatever CV you decide to choose, it doesn't matter, but it's however you best want to present your academic information and your professional experience. So you have to make that decision. So again, you start off in the same kind of way, a profile summary, then you've got your education, as mentioned. Make the degree title bold, not the university name. You can see they haven't put too much information about the modules, but do put some relevant information on some of the modules, if not all of them. And then what they've done is they've actually given subheadings to the skills for working in a team. Where did they demonstrate that? Look at the kind of language they use as well. It's third person format, editing and publishing newsletter, staff member at Starbucks fulfilling orders and providing excellent customer service. And then they talk about some of the other skills and they evidence that. So that's just a quick snapshot view of CVs. That career summary, so whether you use a chronological CV or a functional CV, the personal profile or career summary is really important because that's going to highlight your key capabilities, but also your current status. So let's have a look at a few. Actually, before we do that, let's have a look at this profile. So you can actually put your answers in chat. Connor, if you can just monitor chat, what do you think's wrong with this profile? So the profile says ambitious, enthusiastic, hardworking, third-year student seeking challenging opportunities to utilize my skills where I can progress within the organization and develop the experience I'm looking for. I'm an excellent communicator, team player, and have high quality organization and problem solving skills with a strong eye for detail and the ability to get things done. What's wrong with this? Too long? Repeat the skills you just, oh, sorry. No evidence, first person, yeah. Should have written in point form, okay. Anything else? Yeah, not, well, yeah, some parts of it is not in third person. Anybody else? Not in third person, yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at this. It's actually general, it's vague, you know, it's very cliched, it lacks evidence. It's a kind of thing which, you know, it's a general statement, but it doesn't really give me any concrete evidence. So how should you write it? Well, there's some examples here. So if you're kind of a postgraduate level and you've got lots of experience that you can draw on, then your career summary can look like something in that first example, you know, extensive experience within the pharmaceutical industry, in-depth understanding of all facets of sales and marketing, blah, blah, blah. But if you're just a recent graduate, you could write something like this: computer science graduate, passionate about data engineering and machine learning, highly capable leader, having multiple senior class projects to completion, proficient in a range of modern technologies, including Python, Java, and Scala. I think I've said that right. So that just gives you an idea. I mean, within those 3 lines, you can get a lot of information about that student, and then you can get the details about their education after that. So just really target that. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So we kind of touched on this already. The average time, you know, a recruiter probably spends on your CV is something in the order of 6 to 8 seconds. And this is really from industry research. You know, recruiters scan for job titles and subheadings. So generally, the best performing CVs have clear and simple layouts, and it has to match with what the role requires. So again, standard format in UK is no more than 2 pages, and it's got to be tailored. In finance, if you're sort of doing a finance degree, then I would say just have a 1-pager. We've talked about having each CV tailored to the position, and really having your achievements and evidence included in your CV as well. So I won't talk about that. What isn't your CV? Well, it's not your life story. You know, they don't want paragraphs and chunks of information. It's not a cut and paste job with a job description, and it's not a poorly targeted CV. Don't send the same CV to lots of different positions, because you will not get an interview if that's what you're doing. Also, if you are applying to big graduate schemes, those organizations, when they're getting lots of applications, use applicant tracking systems. They're a very popular tool. And what they do is they scan for keywords. So they have keyword trackers to find suitable candidates. So it's important you kind of get through that first stage of screening. And they're looking for essential skills and experience. And they're going to be looking at those keywords are in the job description. Just another point, if during an online application, there is a section asking if a current employee has referred you to the role, say yes, if possible, and put that person's name down, because I think it does increase the chance of making it through the ATS system. Now, I'm just going to go through something very quickly. Now, if you've come across a word cloud, so this is just an example of a job description. So what I would ask you to do is analyze the job description. And you can do that by using lots of word cloud tools. There's one called Monkey Learn, which I've taken a snapshot view of it in the presentation here. So copy and paste that job description into that tool. And what it will do is it'll generate a word cloud. So those words are the words that are in the job description. And it will also show you the frequency of each of those words. So make sure that they're actually, those words, those skills are listed in your CV. And I think this is a really useful technique, especially if you're applying to big recruitment companies as well, where they use ATS tools. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you know, this is a kind of language you should use on your CV. Again, when you're trying to talk about your achievements, there's just a table here. You will have access to the slides afterwards. But again, use professional language and talk about your achievements in the third person format. Something else to bear in mind. So the STAR process, the whole STAR process is a methodology which is used predominantly for interviews, but also it applies to when you're writing your professional experience on your CV as well. So the whole acronym stands for S for situation, you know, given some background of where you demonstrated that problem solving skill, for example, you know, task, what was your role? And the actions, what did you know, what you did. And as a result of those actions, what was the outcome? So really important to sort of frame it in that context. Some final top tips, you know, use a professional email address. And I think I've gone through this already. Add your short link for LinkedIn as well. I mentioned that 90% of recruiters do look at candidates through LinkedIn. And if you've got any examples of your work online, do include that in your CV as well. Some style tips, I would say, you know, use bullet points. Don't have too many bullet points as well, you know, just have a fine balance. Avoid large blocks of text and you know, maximize either the 1 page or the 2 pages. Don't have columns of white spaces, because that's just wasted space where you could put some relevant information in. And just use some professional style fonts as well. Use subheadings. As I mentioned earlier. I'm just going to have a look at the chat. Is there a question there? Okay, but isn't that way too detailed, which won't fit into pages? I'm not quite sure what your question is there.
Hi.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, my question is about about your work experience in details, like mentioning examples, the exact problem, how you approached it, how you solved it. So
I think
if I worked in so many companies, how I'm gonna do this with everyone?
You don't need to list every bit of information, but if you think something specifically relevant to the role, mention it. and if you have a one-to-one appointment with a careers consultant assigned in your area, they can help you with some of that. I mean, we're not going to help you write the answers, but we can sort of give you suggestions on how to phrase that experience. Okay. So does that sound helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I mean,
Thank
don't write, some jobs don't write lots and lots of information, only write key bits of information. If a particular project is relevant to the role you're applying for, mention it. But if you've done lots of others, you could just mention the title and not go into it as much detail. Okay, what don't you include? Well, you don't include the words curriculum vitae. You need, your name there. You don't need to put your full address. You could just put the town in. I think that's sufficient. You don't need your nationality. You don't need your marital status, date of birth, and so forth. And you don't need full addresses of the previous employers, schools, colleges, etc.
Sorry, I didn't understand the first line.
The headings, the heading should be your name, not curriculum vitae. Okay, and you don't need to write, this is your address, this is your name. Just put the name there, put your address there, and you don't need to go into details about the address. Just put the town and the county. That's sufficient, really. Okay. All right, let's move on to covering letter. I'm conscious of the fact that I've gone over my time, so I hope you can still carry on listening to me. But the CV is about you. The covering letter is about the organization. It demonstrates your understanding of the company. Keep it brief, emphasize your suitability for the role. So I'm going to just share an example with you in a minute. I'm going to ask you what's wrong with it. But before I do that, let me just kind of give you an idea of what should be in your cover letter. So the first paragraph is, just sort of mentioning where you saw the role advertised. Second paragraph is, why do you want to work for that company? So if it's the BBC, what is it about the BBC that appeals to you? What projects are they doing that you're interested in? Or whichever organization it is. If they're making a new bit of technology, what is it that fascinates you about that? Make it, try and sort of include that kind of information, because it shows the recruiter that you've done some research. And the third and fourth paragraphs are about how your skills fit into the role that you're interested in. So it's about massaging the ego of the organization, if I can say that, showing that you're really passionate about working for them. And the fifth and closing paragraph is really saying sort of, I look forward to hearing from you and I welcome the opportunity to have an interview. And if there's any other information you would like, please do not hesitate to contact me. So it's just a closing statement. So bearing in mind what I've said now, actually, let me just cover this. So how do you address your cover letter? It's always dear sir and madam. Even if the name is on the job description, never address anybody by their first name. If you must use their surname. And then this is the etiquette that you follow. If it's dear Sarah Madam, it's yours faithfully, or it's yours sincerely if it's dear Mr. If there's a surname. Now, there's lots of examples on prospects, so you can have a look at some of those. But also on Indeed.com, they've got lots of different sector examples. The only problem with Indeed is that they start off with dear hiring manager. So that's a US, that's how they would sort of write a covering letter in the US, but in UK, it's either dear sir, madam, or address them by their surname. Okay, so based on what I've said, what's wrong with this cover letter? Now, they're both written really well. What is it that I said that you must include? What's wrong with the first one? That's giving you a hint. You can put your audio on, or you can just write it in chat. Okay, there's a grey bar obstructing it. Can you just bear with me 1 second? I can't move this bar here because it's the Zoom bar, but if you just read the top half of it, you should be able to get an idea.
So the first one is in the format of an email.
Yeah. Now, what I will say is don't worry too much about the fact that, yes, normally we're sending covering letters by email, so you wouldn't put the date on if it was an email, but read the main body of the content and don't focus too much on the address and the date. what do you think? What do you think's missing from the first one? I'm just going to have a look.
What did he know about this job?
Yeah, the company. It mentions
Yeah, what
nothing
did he
about-
hear about it?
Yeah, but the second one does, doesn't it? Because it talks about, I know media company has a strong reputation in the industry. I was particularly attracted by the work you did for excommunications, which I came across during research for a university project. So it demonstrates your understanding where you came across the organization. Now, there's nothing essentially wrong with the first one, but I think it could just benefit with a bit of detail. It's got to be targeted to the organization you're applying for. And I think it would be better. I mean, beautifully, it talks about the skills in the third and fourth paragraph, but to really give you that little bit of edge, especially nowadays where, positions are so competitive, I think just demonstrate your understanding of the organization. I'm just going to have a quick look at what people have written in chat. Yeah. So I think a lot of people have actually captured that. First one has no company information. It's actually a CV. It doesn't feel like a cover letter. Well, the thing is, remember something. Sometimes, that cover letter, pick out the most essential skills. Now, I'm not saying put everything that's in your CV there, but definitely mention some key skills which are relevant to the role in your cover letter. Okay, so conscious of time, let's move on from there. I think we're going to miss this exercise. It's just a small exercise that sort of looks at spelling mistakes that Microsoft Word wouldn't pick up. So let's move on that. But some common CV mistakes, no target audience, poor layout, lacks headings, too many bullet points, don't have all these tables and lines which don't format correctly, boring, unnecessary information, chunks of text, too much on the interest, inappropriate personal information, and poor spelling and grammar and fancy fonts. So just be mindful of some of these common CV mistakes. So I'd just like to conclude today by sort of signposting you to some relevant resources. So we do have some samples on the Brunel website as well under the career pages. The web link is there, so have a look at that. There's lots of different examples there to get you started. Also on prospects.ac.uk, and I'm just going to move this bar out the way. Again, you've got examples of CVs, you've got creative style CVs, cover letters, and lots of other information as well. So do have a look at that as well. And just use these tools as a guide and make use of one-to-one appointments with your careers advisor who can actually go into a bit more detail and give you some relevant suggestions in your particular subject area. Have a look at LinkedIn Learning as well. There's lots of useful tutorials on that. Once you've actually done your CV on a Word and you're quite happy with it, if you want to use a creative template, then a lot of students are looking at novaresume.com. You can get a 1-page free with this, but I think you do have to pay for a 2-page CV. The only thing I will say is be wary when you wouldn't use the first template because you don't want to put your photograph on this. So this is an American-based website, but look at the templates where it doesn't have your photograph and it doesn't ask you to rate your skills, because I always find that a bit strange how you would rate those skills, because if I want to really sell myself to employer, I want to rate myself as 5 for every single skill. So I don't particularly like the skills rating bar. I would rather list it like the second example. And finally, what I'd like to say is, if you do want to get your CV checked, make an appointment with the link there. We have 30-minute appointments where you'll speak to your relevant career consultant, or if you've got a query on the day and you haven't made a previous appointment, then you can make a quick query 15-minute appointment, but the web link is there to make those appointments. Thank you so much for listening, and if you've got any questions, please do either put them in chat or you can just put your audio on.
Hi, Rita, how are you doing today?
I am very good, thank you.
Yes, so first of all, I was looking for the 3 soft skills you mentioned. First was problem solving, then it was emotional stability, was it?
Emotional intelligence. I mentioned those just in general terms, yeah.
Yeah, and the third one was?
I can't remember what I said now, but I was just kind of sort of Creativity, I think that was one of
No,
them.
no,
wasn't it?
no. You used a very good one.
Problem
Creativity is,
solving. I can't
yeah.
remember now, but if you are interested in some of the top 5 skills, then drop me an email and I can send you a couple of slides of what LinkedIn, what their survey results have generated.
Can you please share your email in the chat,
Yes,
please?
I can. I'll do that straight away. It's actually on the front page of the slide, but I'll put it here as well. Do not send me your CVs to check on an individual basis. I certainly won't do that. You have to book it through the appointments. But I'm happy, you will get a copy of the slides. Is that right, Connor? They'll have access to the slides afterwards.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I can't see why not.
Okay. Sorry, just Connor, where will the slides be? Do they get sent? Or are they stored on Blackboard?
That is something that we can circulate after once I find the
not
answer.
a problem. That's fine. Okay, we can sort that out later. But you've got my email address, just in case you do have any problems. Right, somebody was about to ask a question.
Yes, I actually had a question that would this presentation be shared with us via email for future reference?
Yeah, well, as we just mentioned with Connor, we'll find out a way of how to get the presentation to you, so you will have access to it. So don't worry about that. You will have access.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, but you've got my email. Should you not hear from us, you've got my email, and you can badge them in. I'll send it to you.
Yes.
But we've got a list of all the students who are registered, and we'll make sure you get a copy of the presentation. Any other questions?
Yes,
Yeah,
Rita.
hi, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Lakshya. I just wanted to know that how to mention the qualifications equivalent to UK qualification in our CV, because I've done my earlier education from India, back in India.
You can, there are, if you just did a Google search to look at equivalent qualifications, like, just did a general search, you'll come across the website. I think it's through NARIC is the organization. But there is a national organization that does talk about the equivalency. So I'll have a look, and I'll maybe
What's
I'll put a
the
link
website?
on.
Can you share with me the name?
Let me just
I didn't
have a
get the name.
look.
Yeah.
Just bear with me 1 second. So I'm just going to stop sharing that. I have used lots of websites in the past, but one that I think I remember that does that is, just bear with me.
Is it an important
International.
part of CV to do that? I mean,
always think about the, so I've got the link here, and I'll just put it on. Just always think about your target audience. So if you're applying for jobs in the UK, it's, if you want them to understand what you're, so I've put the link on there. I think it's always sort of better to sort of write it as an equivalency, so they know what it, generally, the most recent education is the most important, but if you really want to go into that level of detail, so to get into university, you need at least 3 A levels. So if you don't know, if you can't find anything in the equivalency website, then, your secondary education is definitely equivalent to 3 A levels, because that's what you need.
Okay, I'll just go through the same. Thank you so much for sharing the link. Yeah, thank
not a
you.
problem. And if you've got a GPA rating, then, if you're at the sort of the top quarter of that rating, then you got a first class if it was an undergraduate degree. Yeah.
Okay.
But do have a look at that.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Rita, I just opened Survey Monkey.
Sorry.
Sorry. The Monkey Learn, was it?
Monkey Learn, yeah.
Yeah, I just opened. I think it is a paid website. How, if you can guide me through it, that what exactly we have to do on it?
I'll show you very quickly. Now, I don't think it was, when I had a look at it, it wasn't paid, because I managed to do it without paying. But if it is paid, then there's plenty of other cloud generating websites which are free. That's just one that I've came across and sort of
Can you please share the name? Yeah.
So this is it. I'm on the screen here. Can you see my screen? Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so basically where it says source text, I've actually just copied and pasted the job, and then I go generate cloud, and then it gives me that cloud there. So I've managed to do that. I don't know how, but there will be other cloud tools that you can use that will be free as well. But it just, I think if anything, it kind of showcases the relevant buzzwords in that job description and the frequency of those buzzwords. So just a little tip that I normally share with students, which I think is quite useful. So I do hope that you use that in terms of making very tailored and bespoke CVs when you're applying for positions. One or two more questions, and then I'm going to close the workshop. I hope you found it useful.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Please do ask.
Could you please share once more the website of Brunel about the CV template?
Yeah, like I said, you will have access to the presentation, and all the links will be on that. But if you want me to just very quickly share it with you, 1 second, let's just get to the relevant site. So if I just sort of copy it and I'll put it on the chat, and then you can access it. Okay. Is that okay?
Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions?
Yes. Can you hear me?
What? Yes. Let's go ahead.
Okay. It's actually more a curiosity than a question. Because I'm European. I came from Italy, and just for curiosity, I would like to know: is it actually harder right now after Brexit to get a job in UK? And what is a sponsorship, and which is the difference with the visa?
Okay.
I don't know if you know it.
Yeah, I will answer that in very brief terms, because you know, every situation and every sector is very different. You know, there is on the government website, UK government website, you can actually do a skills shortage search. And for those specific skills, maybe it's more easier to get into the roles such as electronic engineering, but there's some also business roles there as well. Now, I can't really talk about it in too detail, but if you just do a general search for skills shortage, with your question with respect to, you know, current opportunities and with Brexit and so forth and the pandemic, I would say, yes, it has definitely had an effect on the job market. And but at the same time, I think whether you're a home student or an international student, it's really important to have a positive mindset and to be proactive, because, you know, you have got some really diverse set of skills which are unique to yourselves, which you developed in your home countries, which you know, which will also be attractive and important to highlight to any position you're applying for here. So I think just have a positive mindset. I mean, the graduate market did go down significantly when we were at the peak of COVID, but it is picking up. You know, graduate vacancies are going up by 4%. So the market and the trend is going upwards now. So I think, you know, just have a positive mindset and don't limit yourself, and don't feel, I can't answer the question about whether it's easy to get a visa, because that's very, very dependent on the different sector and also on the organization.
Okay,
yeah.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that concludes our workshop today. I hope you found it useful. And as Connor mentioned, we will make sure that you have a copy of the presentation, and the session's also been recorded. So thank you so much for taking part in today's workshop. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, Rita. You were so awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the lovely feedback. Thank you.
Cheers. Have a good day.
You too. Take care. Okay, Connor, I'll just stay on the line.
Yeah, sounds good.
Just wait for everybody to log out.